listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on your BYOD policy Part 2, Performance and Scalability. My name is Vanessa Cardwell. I'm Marketing Manager here at Network Utilities, and I'm joined this morning by our Network and Security Specialist Malcolm Orakoya. NetUtils are Juniper Elite partners, and we've been partnering with Juniper since 2006. So this is the second in our series of 4 webinars covering the Juniper Network Simply Connected story. So please keep an eye out for details of Part 3 and 4, which will cover reliability and management. So the purpose of the webinar series is to really hone in and go into some detail on each of the areas of the Simply Connected story so we can support your understanding of each element and break it down into sections most relevant. So please do get in touch with us if you would like a copy of Webinar 1, which covered provisioning and security. So to get started, let me quickly take you through the agenda. Today's presentation will last about 25 minutes with an opportunity for you to submit questions, which we will answer at the end. Please use the question tab on the control panel to submit questions at any stage during the presentation. So we would very much like to make this presentation interactive. So we are inviting you to contribute to the discussion this morning by asking you to respond to a couple of poll questions. One will be presented to you at the start of the presentation shortly and the other towards the end. We'll be feeding back to you on the responses to these at the end of this morning's webinar, so do stay tuned to hear the findings. Everyone who responds to our poll questions will be sent a complimentary copy of our solutions brief, 10 Reasons Enterprises Prefer Juniper Wireless, and we hope you find that useful. So I'd like now to ask you to answer our first poll question, which I'm going to launch now, so that should be with you now. Do you anticipate that your wireless LAN will need to grow to accommodate increasing user demands for BYOD? So we're very interested in hearing what your responses are to that. So we'll give you a couple of seconds to vote on there. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'd like to now ask Malcolm to join me in exploring and explaining how Juniper Networks, wired, wireless, firewall, and identity solutions collaborate to create the industry's highest performing and scalable networking solution. We hope you enjoy the presentation, and we very much look forward to answering any questions you have at the end.
Right, good morning, everyone. We discussed in the first part of the webinar series the BYOD trend and the subsequent influx of mobile devices onto networks. And then we covered the provisioning and security challenges that enterprises face as a result of this and how the Juniper Network Simply Connected architecture and products can cater for various scenarios. Today we'll be discussing the high performance requirements that are demanded from enterprise networks today as a result of the explosion of BYOD. What's causing this performance drive and how the Juniper portfolio of products can support enterprises in providing that high performance that users are demanding today, and also ensuring that the networks can scale easily and cost effectively to meet demands.
Okay, so I think at this point it might be worth just quickly revisiting and briefly explaining Juniper's Simply Connected architecture to put this into context. So Juniper Networks have always had innovative products, technology and software catering for the switching, security and wireless infrastructure, as many vendors do. And all these elements within any network must interact with each other. But only Juniper Networks has made a move to simplify how these various network elements interact by introducing innovative software and hardware that communicate end-to-end in one cohesive ecosystem, thereby providing what you're seeing on the slide there, simple provisioning of network elements and users, simple and integrated security, high performance and scalability, which obviously we're discussing today, reliability and simple management.
Yeah, exactly. So on this slide here, we just want to have a look to see what's shaping business communication today on your network. With regards to performance and scalability, we can summarize that there's a combination of things, but at least the 3 things on the screen there, video, mobile, and social, contribute to some of these reasons. So we're going to have a look at them individually if we start with video on the left. Nowadays, video on the network is integrated quite easily, and a lot of people are using video conferencing, and nowadays it's very easy to adopt with things like Microsoft Lync, where you have that full collaboration with your emails and your phone system. You have things like Skype, which obviously is free and you can easily use on any network. In addition to that, you get much better performance than you used to probably 5-10 years ago on video conferencing calls, with obviously the increased speeds of broadband connections, Wi-Fi connections, Wi-Fi cards and all that, and obviously 3G and 4G connections as well, much faster than they used to be previously. In addition, cost effective for most people to run video services nowadays. As I mentioned, something like Skype is free and used quite widely on enterprises, and something like Lync integrates quite nicely into your network. The mobile section, we obviously know about the BYOD trend or revolution, as it says on the slide there, which is basically users wanting to bring their own devices, smartphones, tablets, laptops, onto your corporate network and access corporate and other content hosted internally or externally. In addition to that, this proliferation of mobile devices onto your network is also changing the way applications and operating systems are actually being developed. Nowadays, you won't have a developer that's developing an application, a service, or a website that won't take into account how those services or applications or websites will be viewed by a mobile device, whether it's a smartphone or tablet. So obviously the consideration is there, and as a result there's actually more strain on the Wi-Fi connections that this mobile device is used to access those applications and services, and obviously the 3G and 4G networks provided by the carriers as well have additional strain from these mobile devices accessing the network. In fact, if I just reference quickly some research that was done by Juniper Networks in conjunction with Forrester, actually has some very interesting stats. The research was done in October 2012, and a couple of the stats are, it said in the last 18 months, 47% of businesses have seen increased demand from their end users to bring their own devices to work. It also said that when ranking IT initiatives for the last 12 months, from October 2012, 72% of IT businesses and decision makers put expanding use of mobile applications for their employees, their customers, and their business partners at the top of their agenda. So not only is the mobile infiltrating the network, but users are going to use it more and more to deliver services and applications to their customer base or user base. We move on to the third part, social. We're all too aware of social interaction nowadays, and in fact social networking is probably considered a very important part of everyday business marketing, and is seen essentially as a productivity tool for modern businesses today. Things like LinkedIn, Twitter, and blogs and so on and so forth are a means of getting out to your end users. Users also expect availability of this social platform all the time, and 99.999 availability across all devices, which is actually affecting IT decisions globally. People are having to take into consideration the user's expectations.
Okay, so examining key shifts for the enterprise now, how are these general communication trends specifically impacting the enterprise? Presumably, users expect instant and always available access to all these communication channels you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely, Vanessa. Like I mentioned, nowadays the BYOD trend, or consumerization of IT as it's called sometimes, basically users are increasingly expecting you as an IT administrator or enterprise network administrator to treat them like a client, almost like a paying client. So it puts a lot of pressure on enterprises to provide that 5 nines availability and high performance that the users are basically demanding. The slide here just shows the two key shifts in the enterprise today, and some of the key reasons why these shifts are affecting enterprise networks. BYOD, enterprise BYOD, bring your own device into the network. Bandwidth pressure. Bandwidth needs are readily available nowadays. You can increase your bandwidth and so on and so forth, but the more devices that you're getting onto your network, then the more pressure you have on your bandwidth in order to provide the necessary bandwidth for the users to access resources that are in hosted data centers or external data centers and so on and so forth. You also have to consider resiliency. It has to be implemented at every stage of your network in the entire infrastructure. And the wireless access needs to be available almost like a wired-like performance. Users are expecting all their corporate internet applications and services to be delivered almost at the same speed as if they plug the cable into their device. Of course, security has to be taken into account, whether the user is bringing their own device in or they're accessing corporate services hosted internally or externally, or a cloud service hosted externally. The corporation needs to consider security from the end user's device down to the application or the service they're providing. Also, the quality of experience that the end user has needs to be maintained. The users need to be able to access whatever they need, whatever corporate resources they need in the cloud easily and without too much of an effort, really. And of course, for IT decision makers and managers, the whole thing needs to be cost effective. You need to be able to justify all your IT resources and make sure that they're utilized correctly.
Okay, so as Malcolm's just explained, user expectations are placing increased demands on the IT department. And here's a really interesting slide that we wanted to share with you today that illustrates the BYOD trend and emphasizes much of what Malcolm has just explained. So if you take a look at the graph here, which shows a large American university with about 9,000 access points, 300 acres and 50,000 students, you can see in the spring of 2010 there were about 40,000 wireless sessions per day. There was then a little bit of a lull over the summer break, and then when the students come back in the autumn term of 2010, there are more than 3 times the number of daily wireless sessions than before. Now skip forward and look at the autumn of 2011, where there was a huge hike to 300,000 wireless sessions. So it's pretty clear that the university didn't go out and get another 100,000 students over the summer. So this is students coming back with more than one mobile device, iPads, tablets, laptops, that kind of thing, all accessing the same wireless network. So this is a really powerful illustration of just how much BYOD is affecting this particular organization and how the trend has really picked up momentum. So moving on from that, let's talk about rich media and business critical applications. Presumably, alongside the growth in BYOD, as well as more devices trying to access your network, the users of those devices are trying to access rich media like video and business applications like Microsoft Lync. Therefore, the network needs to perform at a higher level to facilitate live interaction and real-time communications.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vanessa. Businesses are increasingly dependent on uninterrupted application availability, regardless of what device they're accessing from, what location they're accessing from, whether it's Skype or Microsoft Lync or social application. They're looking for reliable performance, hence what we're talking about today. Things like flow-based prioritization and ease of provisioning, which we covered in the first part of the webinar. And easy capacity planning is needed for all these applications to work quite nicely. Juniper's network solutions collaborate quite easily to provide all the bits that you need to integrate with your unified communications strategy, and we've got a few of them highlighted on the slide here, and I'm just going to run through a few of them quickly. Assured quality of experience. Here, this is done via the high-performance wired and wireless architecture provided by Juniper. They have hardware-accelerated IPsec, they have consistent quality of service, and accelerated and secure remote access. Also, everything with Juniper is scalable from small to large enterprises without complexity or compromise anywhere with regards to the services that you get. We keep mentioning the wired-like experience on wireless. Like I said, wireless is the main means of access now, and Juniper delivers high performance on their wireless infrastructure non-stop without any impact on the users during upgrades or patches or anything like that. They have multiple levels of redundancy in their architecture, at various levels, from things like their virtual chassis technology with their EX switches, where you can have multiple switches in a stack on a 128 gig backplane. They have virtual clustering and also the industry's most resilient core in their Q Fabric technology, which is fairly new technology that reduces the number of hops you have within your network. They also have simplified operations to reduce human errors and downtime when it comes to provisioning, as we discussed in the first webinar. And they have coordinated threat control where wireless and wired environments can easily take advantage of things like zero-day attacks, loss and theft mitigation, and mobile device security with the mobile client and various other things.
Okay, so in short, all of these elements combined provide the high performance and scalability required as a result of these increased demands.
Absolutely, and if we just look on this performance slide here, in order to meet the enterprise network demands as we've discussed so far, this slide illustrates some of Juniper's products and how they collaborate to create this high performance experience that we're talking about. So I'm just going to go into detail on some of them. High performance access points. Obviously, there are lots of vendors with wireless access points, but Juniper can boast to have the highest performing access points because there's research to support this. For example, recent research into Juniper's WLAN 532 access point was independently tested earlier this year by Novarum, an independent consulting firm that specializes in wireless technology. The testing was done within a large live open office environment that's typical of most enterprises today. And Novarum were particularly impressed with the performance of the Juniper WLAN 532 access point at the typical deployment speed of 5 gigahertz. The test actually showed that the access points provided better performance and range and more robust coverage at 5 gigahertz than the similar products that were tested from Cisco and Aruba networks. In fact, it turned out that the further away you went from the access point, the bigger the Juniper performance improvement was compared to the other access points tested from by Cisco and Aruba networks. This information, or this test information by Novum is publicly available on the Juniper website and obviously has all the details of the test and the access points that were tested by Juniper and Cisco and Aruba and other vendors. If I go on, look at latency and interference mitigation, Juniper's EX switches and the virtual chassis technology, which I mentioned earlier, runs a stack of several switches on 128 gigabits per second backplane, which essentially allows for very low latency on your enterprise network. In addition to that, I mentioned the QFX, the Q Fabric series, which are low latency switches that are purpose-built for high throughput. It reduces the number of hops you have in your network. It also reduces the number of tiers you have in your network when you talk about perimeter, access, distribution core, and so on and so forth. Also, Juniper's wireless LAN controllers have built-in by default rogue access point detection for security, as well as channel conflict detection to help detect and mitigate interference on your wireless network. If I talk about quickly the support for unified communications and collaboration services across the enterprise, which obviously deals with addressing services like voice, video, and instant messaging. Microsoft Lync is very widely used in most enterprises today, and the use of Microsoft Lync is increasing. As I mentioned, it combines voice, video, and collaboration. And Juniper has a series of products ranging from their MX series routers to their EX series switches I already talked about, SRX series firewalls, WLC wireless controllers, and the Genus Pulse agent, to name a few of the things that they have that all provide integration to support this voice, video, and collaboration demand that we're getting from enterprises today. So this results in Juniper being able to provide you the high performance that you require on your network today, or essentially that's demanded by users from your network today. And if we compare on the next slide the performance advantage of Juniper in comparison to other big vendors in the market, Aruba, Cisco, and Motorola, you'll see a bunch of the things that we've talked about already with ticks for Juniper and a few ticks for the other providers. So looking at things like high performance APs, high performance networks, lowest latency, interference mitigation, voice and video performance, a lot of the competing vendors have some of the functionality that Juniper provides, but not all of them support all the functionality. You either have no support at all, or you have limited support from other vendors.
Okay, so referring back, we introduced a technology summary in part 1 of our webinar series. So this slide highlights some of the Juniper technologies and solutions that support the Simply Connected message, and specifically in relation to high performance and scalability.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially what we're trying to do is just summarize the technology that comes out of the products that Juniper provides within the Simply Connected architecture. The architecture allows for scalability without complicating the network, as we've discussed already, and a highly resilient, automated and uninterrupted service. And all of these technologies can be found in various products, as I've mentioned, from Juniper, and we'll show that on the next slide, and how these products can collaborate end-to-end from, say, a wireless access point to a controller to an enforcement point like a firewall to a NAC solution like a UAC or MAC device to basically allow you to provide your users with the service and performance and scalability that they're requiring today.
Okay, so thank you very much indeed for taking us through that, Malcolm. All the Juniper products within the Simply Connected portfolio are available through network utility systems. So we invite you to contact a solution expert on our team for further information on any of the Juniper products that we've discussed here today. So moving on, now we would like to invite you to answer our second poll question. So we're just going to launch that for you now. And that is, what level of performance issues have you experienced on your wireless LAN as a result of users bringing their own devices to work? So we'll just give you a couple of seconds to answer that now. So if you could please submit your response to that, that would be great. Lovely, we can see those poll questions coming in now. So we'll just wait for a few more people to respond on there. Give it a couple of seconds. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. We'd like to now open up to questions. So if you have any questions for Malcolm, please use the question tab to submit those now. And while we're waiting for these questions to be submitted, I'll just quickly take you through the responses to the poll questions. So if we can launch the responses to the first poll around, do you anticipate that your wireless LAN will need to grow to accommodate increasing user demands for BYOD? We can see there that 83% of you have responded yes to that you actually do anticipate that your wireless LAN would need to grow. So that would fit with our expectations and certainly the industry trends that we're experiencing. And if we just launch poll number 2 responses, what level of performance issues have you experienced on your wireless LAN as a result of users bringing their own devices to work? So a bit more of a mix there. 75% of you have experienced sort of 10 to 30% of performance issues, and 25% of you 50 to 80%. So certainly we are experiencing performance issues on the wireless LAN. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that. That's really useful. So now let's open up to questions. We've got a couple coming in here. So first of all, if I get a massive hike in usage, this relates to the university slide that I just showed, how easy is it to scale and manage, Malcolm?
Well, with the Juniper wireless infrastructure, if you get something like the university got on the slide that we showed, it's very easy for you to integrate a new access point or a new device to deal with the user demand in a particular area. In fact, the whole process can be automated by the wireless controller infrastructure. If you happen to have a different wireless vendor, you probably need to have discussions with us for us to look at your individual requirements and see how we can integrate the Juniper wireless infrastructure into your network.
Okay, so we've got another question here come through from one of you. How does the HP wireless solution compare to Juniper's that wasn't on the slide?
Okay, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we couldn't put too many of the vendors. As you can imagine, there's so many of them on there. But I believe that there's actually a few other vendors that have been tested. I can't remember a few of them. I can't remember if HP is particularly on that list. But I think the point to drive through here is the big vendors in the market when it comes to wireless solutions are people like HP, Cisco, Aruba, and these are names that most people would have heard of if they're looking at a wireless solution. And for Juniper to be competing quite highly with these guys in terms of performance, scalability, provisioning, and so on and so forth, I can safely say that they're probably going to have similar results with the HP wireless infrastructure. But if you need additional information, there's probably a bit more information on the access points that Juniper have and a few more comparison information on the Juniper website.
Okay, do please get in touch if you would like us to expand on that answer. So we've just got time for one more quick question, and it's one we've had before actually about I already have a wireless network with other vendor access points. Can I integrate Juniper solutions with that?
Yeah. I mean, so like I mentioned earlier, if you have an existing network with other vendors' access points, as we've shown, Juniper's access points are the highest performing in comparison to all the top vendors. We can easily discuss with you integrating a Juniper solution side by side with your existing infrastructure, so you can do a direct comparison. Obviously, the other end-to-end bits that Juniper provides, like switches and 802.1x authentication and stuff like that, can integrate with other vendors. Probably another thing worth mentioning here is network utilities are going to launch very soon a managed guest access solution, which essentially is allowing you to have your wireless infrastructure hosted in the cloud. That means you don't have to get into managing wireless controllers, access points, and all that stuff. It'll be managed for you in the cloud. So by all means, again, get in contact with us if you do have an existing wireless vendor and you want to do either a side-by-side comparison, or you want us to do a one-to-one session with you to prove the performance benefits that Juniper can provide to you, and obviously we'll be more than happy to help.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much for taking us through those questions, Malcolm, and thank you all for joining us for the webinar today. We hope you found it useful. Our recording will be made available shortly, so do please keep an eye out on our website for that. And as Malcolm said, if you'd like to speak to a solution expert about anything you've seen today, please do get in touch with us at NetUtils on the numbers here. We do hope you can join us for part 3 and 4 of our Simply Connected webinar series, which will cover reliability and management. Part 3 has already been scheduled and will be held on Wednesday the 16th of January at 11 a.m. So we'll shortly be sending invitations out for that. Thanks again for joining us, and we very much look forward to seeing you again in the new year.
Thank you.